A very warm welcome again to this episode. I have said it before and I say it again. It is not a child's play to deal with people's health. Have you ever wondered why this is the case? This is my reason. We are not creators of the body. All of us, with doctors and professors included, are not creators of the body. We are not even teachers of the body. The body is itself the teacher, because that is how it has been designed by the Creator. For instance, you don't tell the heart to pump at its rate. It tells you that it pumps at this rate, and your task is to make sure you understand that and ensure that this is not disturbed. Our techniques at Health Haven, therefore, are informed by these beliefs and acknowledgements. And each day we are more and more amazed and in awe by how the universe keeps broadening our understanding of the body. We get validation every day by the phenomenal results that we achieve, both in diagnosis and treatment. These results baffle even conventional medicine. In this episode of today, we are still covering our treatment techniques, and we talk about brain-related conditions and the cases that we have treated which fall in this category. The complication of the brain is a known fact to all of us, and for this reason, we will take various conditions or symptoms which are perceived to be induced by brain-related complications. This week, therefore, we will take epileptic seizures and we'll refer to cases that we have treated with this symptom. So enjoy this show.
Health Haven is taking the health industry by storm. They are the talk of the town because they do the unthinkable and the unprecedented. That is what defines Health Haven. They have the gift of healing, and they know what they are doing.
Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Alternative Show. I'm Carol, your medical intuitive, and presenter is Tembi. Hi, Tembi.
Hi, Carol.
Good. Tembi, these treatment episodes that we've been doing are triggering a lot of debates. Is this what the purpose of the show is?
Yeah. Look, the purpose of this show has got quite a few objectives, okay, and debates is one of them. Because remember, when it comes to health, we've accepted where we're coming from. We've accepted that what you get given in terms of diagnosis and treatment by your physician is the law.
Absolutely.
You cannot question it. You cannot ask or have opinions about it, and you've got to accept what you get given.
So you basically do as you're told.
Do as you are told. So I know that people are coming from that background of not asking, you know. But now this show is giving people a platform to be educated from, so that they understand that you have a right to know what's going on. If you're not happy, you need to check further, okay? And also you have a right to accept. I mean, I know people would say a doctor diagnosed this and I went for a second opinion and a third. You have a right to that.
Sure.
You have a right to do that, but you also have a right to even understand. If he says you've got vertigo, you have a right to know what is that?
And what causes it.
What causes it?
Absolutely.
You know, and your treatment is going to help me how? You know, people are beginning to understand that. And the other thing that people are expressing quite a gratitude on is they're beginning to understand the anatomy.
And how the body works.
How the body works and how this relates to what. And they like the way we are simplifying it.
Sure.
So that everybody even at what level.
Correct.
Can begin to resonate.
And to understand.
So that is the whole idea of
the object.
Of the object. But the second thing that I want to mention is this is a platform that makes people understand that healing is not a right. Access to health is a right, is a basic human right, but healing, the actual healing, so that your body gets back to its equilibrium, its balance, is not a right, it's a gift.
Absolutely.
It is a gift. People need to understand that. So that what you decide to do is always your choice. Nobody can force you to take treatment. Nobody can force you to do whatever that you don't want to do. Because it's your right to make such choices. So even people who come to me and say, my doctor has said I must take this treatment, I said, he has got a right to give you an advice, but not to force you.
Whether you take it or not.
Even with us, we don't.
Sure.
We don't. I mean, you will find, Carol, we will diagnose people and we say, this is what we're picking up, and we work out a treatment program, and then a person, then we leave that to the person. You will find we never phone people once we've given them, worked out the treatment, check, are you going to come and buy? Or when are you? We don't do that. We forget about you. Once we've given you the program, and this is what it's going to cost you, and this is what we're going to do, then we forget about you until you come and say, yes, I want to be treated.
But I know so many that phone delighted with their results.
The people that we follow, because we do follow, the people that we follow are people that are receiving treatment from us. Just to check how is it treating you, how are you doing, what are the reactions and all. Then those we really look after them. But if you haven't taken medication from us, we will never call you.
Force it or
we forget about you until you come back and knock and say, I want the treatment. Because, like I say, treatment and the healing is a gift. Healing is a gift. Yeah, it is a gift. So this show, therefore, is about making people receive information, because once you have the information, you're better placed to decide what's next step to follow. Whether you go to conventional, or you go to us, or you go to somewhere else, or whatever, you just change the diet and all that. That is why we're giving people the information right round up to the diet, so that even if you don't have money yet, you can start working.
Absolutely.
By just changing your diet. So that is what this show is all about.
Okay. Perfect. So we're going back to health is wealth.
Yeah. Health is wealth.
Absolutely. Demi, we're still covering the manner in which we administer the medicines to the clients. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So what organ and what symptoms are we going to be covering today? With the treatment and the way we dispense the medications, all incorporated in that.
Yes. Today we're going to be talking about the brain.
Okay.
But within the brain, because remember I've indicated we will cover various organs. Remember last time we were talking about pulmonary conditions, even though we just specifically selected shortness of breath. Yes. Remember, even within the lungs, there are other symptoms that you may experience.
Sure.
Like persistent cough, for instance, instead of shortness of breath, or chest pain. There are other symptoms that you may experience that are pulmonary or respiratory system related. Okay. But we just selected shortness of breath in the last show. This is just to show how vast the subject of health is.
Yes.
Because we still, even if I don't know when, but we'll still go back to the lungs again.
Absolutely.
Or the pulmonary system, and then tackle other things like coughing.
Sure. I think maybe you're just addressing what people have been asking for as well.
Yes, yes. So today we are talking about, we are taking the brain. Even though our presentation is going to probably shock people to see that you may have this type of symptom, but it may be coming from a completely different thing altogether.
Absolutely.
So we're taking the brain, but within the brain related conditions, we're talking about epileptic seizures.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going to be touching
I think before you get too far into it, Temi, I think maybe we can just do a little breakdown of what an epileptic seizure actually is, and what are the signs and symptoms of that.
What it is. Look, before I even say what it is, People sometimes look at me with wide eyes when I tell them we actually have got an electromagnetic field. We've got electricity.
Okay, I can feel already you going in one direction here. So
Yeah.
you're not saying that the epileptic is necessarily a brain-related issue.
No.
Would the brain be the symptom?
The brain may be the symptom.
This gets better.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have got electricity, Carol. We've got live electricity. That is why we
In our bodies?
In our bodies. Our cells have got electrical activity. You know,
So they're charged?
They are charged.
Okay.
We are just like
a battery?
A typical battery.
Okay.
We are just like a typical...
This was making so much more sense now. We don't think of it. So if we have no energy, we've got a problem. Our battery's flat.
Our battery is flat.
This is sounding good.
So every cell has got electricity. And there is activity, electrical activity there. Okay?
Okay.
And those cells have got to receive oxygen, okay, in order to charge that electricity. So, and once that electricity is disturbed by whatever, it will trigger, just like a shot.
Okay,
You know,
so
when
short
you get
circuits.
a electrical, a shot, then the kettle is put on a kettle.
Oh, wow.
And
You mean the
trips.
trip switch? Yes.
Exactly, and it trips and all
everything
lights
shuts down.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we are exactly like that. That's why we cannot touch a live wire and not get electrocuted.
Okay.
Because we've got electricity.
Okay.
Now the brain, I could even equate it with the main circuit.
Okay.
Where you find there is a lot of activity that is controlled by the brain.
Okay.
Even your eating, your breathing, whatever activity that
So is that the computer?
that is like your computer.
Okay, that manages the robot.
That manages the robot.
Okay.
The robot trips there or
Yeah.
it flickers.
Yeah.
The computer is causing the bug.
Makes more sense like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now this is what happens, Carol. Whatever disturbs that field, that cell activity, that electromagnetic field within a cell, will trigger a shot, like I've indicated. Now, the brain being the organ that is mainly involved in controlling a lot of functions. You'll find you may have a problem there in your pancreas, but then it goes and hits your brain. You may have a problem somewhere else where you don't even think it is, but then it goes and triggers the brain. Now, the epileptic seizures are therefore the abnormality of the cell activity, of the electrical cell activity in the brain. It may come from somewhere else, but then it disturbs, like I'm making example that you may put a kettle there, and because there's a problem with that kettle, it just trips the main switch and everything just goes.
Okay, so everything shuts down because of one problem.
Because of that particular problem, and then it hits the brain, and then the brain, because the brain controls so many functions, you find it gets dragged into the equation, even where it was not necessary for that to happen. So that is the main cause for seizures. And you'll see, if for instance you look at you listen to the live wire. Say you stand between the electrical poles that are connected by, and you'll hear zzz,
the vibrations.
The vibration. Or you look at the bee that is just maybe dying, it will
and turn around in circles.
And turns around. That's the vibration, because there's energy, that electrical. So we are like that too. So we've got vibration and that activity. So anything that disturbs, so that you find that brain gets pulled into the equation, even though the problem was not particularly coming from the brain itself, and that is what triggers, but it's actually a brain abnormal cell activity, that disturbs the electric current in your brain. So that is what is it. I mean, even though people may like look with wide eyes like electricity, I mean, electricity is energy.
Yes.
It's energy.
I think maybe the word cell, for me, makes people understand a bit better, because we relate as millions of cells in our body to millions of batteries.
Exactly.
And if the cells aren't touching,
yes,
we have no energy.
We have no energy.
I remember before we were discussing in one of our earlier episodes about the dry state and the wet state with the blood proteins trapped. So now all this is starting to make better sense on our educating of our viewers, where the cells need to touch.
They need to touch, and the retention of fluid disturbs that.
Absolutely.
Because those cells then don't get oxygen. Because remember, the cell survival.
Okay.
It must be supplied with energy.
Timmy, I'm getting more brain waves here now. We understand that, like you said earlier on, the oxygen in the cells. But now we know when a battery's old and it starts leaking and it disturbs the whole or the equipment that is meant to be energizing.
Yes.
So the battery's leaky and it's old. So you're talking about the liquid, the equilibrium in the cell.
Exactly.
It's starting to make so much more sense.
And Carol, if we look at a lot of activity or a lot of processes in nature, you find there are so many similarities.
Absolutely. As you're discussing it, I think it's amazing how you would never really think of it like that, but it makes so much sense. And if it's sense, it's logic, and people can accept logic. But when you look at a person, you don't think of all those little cells that are there, that function and have to be charged with the oxygen and potassium and minerals and nutrients and oxygen. We don't think of that because we can't see it.
Because we can't see it.
Absolutely, but we forget about these cells. So this is quite. I think this is going to be quite an interesting little discussion here today between us, because I can understand so much better already.
Yes.
Cindy, what cases are we going to be discussing today?
Today I've selected 2 cases. It's a teenager. Remember, I said I'm going to try and get a spectrum of ages. So that viewers can begin to see that we've worked with almost all.
So it doesn't discriminate between old and young?
No,
it's across the board.
From the baby to the elderly.
Okay,
and everything in between.
Okay.
So today I'm taking a teenager. And then I'm also taking a young adult, a male this time.
Okay.
A young male. So I've got two clients. Now the first one was a schoolgirl. I'm saying was because we finished working with her. She's just going on with her life now. I mean, normally. It was a colored girl at high school level, about 16 years of age. And she was brought in by the parents because she used to have seizures all the time. At school, it was disturbing her schoolwork, and she, because they would not even know when it's going to hit her. So it was just, and she was on treatment, but the seizures.
Sorry, you said she was on treatment?
For the seizures.
From who?
From conventional. She was, we had not stamina when they brought her, but they didn't know what was triggering.
So the medication they were giving her wasn't actually helping the situation.
Helping the situation.
She was still having seizures.
She was still having seizures.
Okay, I understand.
So they brought her to us, and then I scanned her. Now the first thing that I picked up was it was a pancreatic problem that was triggering the seizures. It had nothing to do with problems within the brain. The brain was itself the victim, not the culprit.
Okay.
Now she had a condition which is called insulinoma. Okay. Now insulinoma is actually a pancreatic problem. It's an endocrine problem. Endocrine its system is the system that controls the glands, like your thyroid, your thymus, your pancreas itself, So her problem was coming from that.
But then tell me, how does that lead to the brain? Because now we're going before, like we're talking about the major circuit board here.
Yes.
Insulinoma being a pancreatic disorder.
Okay.
But now again, how does this lead to the seizures?
All right. Now, firstly, remember the pancreas is the gland that produces, amongst other hormones, insulin. We all know about insulin.
Yes.
That stabilizes the sugar levels.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, this is how the insulin works, Carol, just for the viewers to understand.
Yes.
The insulin is like an usher. You know, when you come to a function and you've got someone who says, sit here.
They take you to your seat.
Sit here, sit here. The insulin is like that. Once you've got glucose, whether you've been eating bread or you had milk or fruit or what, anything that gets converted into glucose, okay, which is sugar, that is where the insulin does the function.
So the insulin actually fetches these byproducts of wherever we're eating.
This glucose.
So that's the vehicle.
That is the vehicle that takes that glucose in it, because glucose should not accumulate in your blood.
Sure.
Glucose should feed the cells.
Okay.
It gives the energy back to the cells again.
So all we're doing, these millions of cells that are in our body are waiting
to receive that glucose to do their work, to get the energy.
And the insulin takes the glucose and distributes
it. It distributes to the cells.
So that's the courier service.
That's the courier service.
I understand.
But once those cells, all that glucose has been properly distributed, the pancreas should not supply anymore until there is a need until
the order comes through.
Until the order for it comes through again.
Okay.
So it just maintains. Everything just remains normal and balanced until you eat again, and then it supplies again to say go.
Okay.
But now, when you've got insulinoma, the insulinoma, the normal part of it actually, that means it's a tumor. Okay, it's actually a tumor. Insulinoma is actually an abnormal tumor, even though in most cases you find it's not cancerous.
Okay.
But it may well be. It does become cancerous.
It can turn malignant.
It can become malignant.
Okay.
Now, but what happens is the abnormality of that hormone ends up supplying insulin even when it is not necessary.
Oh dear.
Okay. Now, just have a picture that everything is now in place and happy. The cells are happy. The glucose is sufficient. Now, here's this usher who keeps
bringing more.
What
do we do with it?
Exactly. And then it causes your sugar levels.
Oh my word.
To drop.
Too much.
It causes your sugar levels to drop. And the problem is, once those sugar levels drop, that's a problem.
Yes.
Because then those cells, they need that energy.
Oh wow.
They need that energy. So the sugar levels cannot drop. They must maintain. So once then they drop, then those cells are starved.
Oh my word.
Of glucose. And the problem is, when they're starved, then they don't have energy. Because that glucose,
like a starving person has no energy.
Exactly.
Oh my word.
And then you find, once that happens, you'll find in some cases when it starts, a person may all of a sudden just feel tired out of the blue.
And it can happen quickly?
It happens quickly. Because it happens quickly. Then you find a person was talking and then all of a sudden feels, hey.
They just start fading.
You know?
Oh my word.
Hence, you find that those people, you'll find the tendency with those people is that they've got to always have something, whether it's a sweet in their
I've
bed.
heard that. They keep nuts or a sweet or something.
They must always have something that gives them, whether it's an apple, to pick them up immediately, to supply them that with glucose, sugar.
And most of these people are on medication, not working, and they still got to keep stuff in their bag.
They've still got, such that you'll find most people with insulinoma tend to think they are diabetic.
And they're not.
And they're not. Even though people with insulinoma can have a type 2 diabetes, but we'll get to that later. That's another subject.
Yeah.
But the majority of people with insulinoma, you find they've got a confusion, because when the sugar levels drops, you might get thirsty. You find which is also a common.
Why would that be?
Because remember the
fluid balance.
The fluid.
Oh my word. Okay.
You know,
makes sense.
So with then you become, and you'll find they tend to be thirsty, and they think maybe it's undiagnosed diabetes, because remember, even with diabetes, they tend to be thirsty.
Yes.
So they get thirsty, they get hungry all the time, they eat, so that's why they must have a sweet, and they might even have dehydration headaches. They've got a tendency of becoming dehydrated and in headaches, persistent headaches, which are because of dehydration. So In this girl, therefore, it had gotten to a stage where it caused her to have seizures because that tumor was really huge, you know, and the bigger it gets, the more hectic the situation becomes. So she was having those seizures because of hypoglycemia. You know, it caused her to have those convulsions. Okay. And that is why you find she was having them more at school.
When she had to concentrate?
No, because at school you cannot just sit and eat while classes are ongoing. You know, at least at home.
So she was restricted.
You can't eat as and when you know, when you feel like, because remember in the first place, they didn't know it had anything to do with sugar levels. You know, they thought it was just so she would just then, because the sugar levels have dropped so low, then all of a sudden, then she would have those seizures. Okay. So that is why it was worse during school time.
Oh my word.
Even though some people even thought maybe she's lazy.
Oh my word.
You know, because remember why does it, and you might find even maybe the relatives or school children end up questioning, no, she only throws the tantrum. She's throwing a tantrum because she hasn't done her homework or whatever.
So she's getting punished as well.
Meanwhile, it was a legitimate problem of sugar levels that had dropped too low.
Oh my word.
So, and also here, Carol, the cause for insulinoma, and she did not just have insulinoma, she also had gastrinoma. Now remember, the gastrinoma is also a pancreatic problem. It's the same, it comes from the same mother, which is the pancreas, because that's another hormone that is supplied by the pancreas, but which works in the stomach.
So she's portraying two symptoms from the same organ.
Even though the one of gastrinoma, she was not presenting as the big problem. Okay, but when I did the scanning, I actually picked up she was gastronomic as well. Okay, and that meant, but this is what happens when you've got gastrinoma. It also makes the situation worse. Because remember, gastrin is used in the stomach. It forms part of the digestive system.
Yes.
Okay. And even gastrin is supposed to be supplied when there's food that needs to be broken down.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, when there is no food, you've finished. The pancreas must not keep pumping
enzymes,
that gastrin into your tummy, because what does it? Remember, this is an acid.
So what's it going to eat?
It's actually going to eat on your stomach lining. Then they tend to have heartburn, and of course, it's not the only reason that causes heartburn. But in cases of gastrinoma, you've got too much supply of this hormone, and it's not needed when there is no food that needs to be broken down. Then it eats.
So it'll eat whatever's there.
Then remember, acid is corrosive, Carol.
Totally.
So it will eat on those tissues, stomach lining, and then you don't understand. And then now you can imagine that this is a double tragedy. There's no food in the stomach for this poor little girl, and the pancreas keeps pumping and saying, "Hey, I want more," and there's no food. Now you're sitting in this class. And your sugar levels go. So she used to have a real situation. Okay. And she was not even supposed to be treated for epilepsy.
Can you believe it?
Because this was now a completely, even though if the level of damage had gone to, because remember, when you get those seizures, and that particular area of the brain is not receiving oxygen, it actually does cause damage to that. Okay. But then you find there are cases where the damage does not warrant you treating for epilepsy. You just need to sort out the cells, work out on the cells, you know. And it was right in her case, I never supplied her with not even one treatment for epilepsy.
Oh my word.
All I did in her treatment program was firstly to correct the iron overload, because what caused her, remember, the insulinoma gastrinoma can be caused by other things, like the von Apple that I was talking about last time, which causes tumors or cysts,
the blockages,
and then there's a whole lot of people that end up having pancreatic related disorders because of von Apple. But in any case, it wasn't von Apple. It was iron overload. Now, it was iron overload that was causing iron deposits into that pancreas. Now, remember, with iron overload, when you've got too much of it, it will be deposited in the organs. It gets stored in the organs.
Is that because there's just too much and the body's trying to distribute it just to get it out of the system?
No, it's not because of that. You'll find that it's because of the disorder, the absorption disorder as well, that you find that the liver battles to regulate the absorption. It absorbs too much of it and then it stores it in, because remember, once it's in the organs, it's already sitting somewhere. When it's still in the blood has to try and direct it to go somewhere. But when it is already in the organ, then it's not in the blood, but it's in the organ. So it's a different, that's why you find there is so much confusion about iron overload and iron deficiency in some diagnosis, because you find it will not be in the blood, and remember, your body is aware that there is this accumulation of iron in these organs. So what does it try to do? It tries to do natural phlebotomy, where it does
bleeding out.
Only its own bleeding out, its own bloodletting. Therefore, it's trying to eliminate that iron. So when they test the blood, they see you've got iron deficiency. Meanwhile, that
with too
iron
much. Oh my word!
Is sitting in those organs, but your body system is trying to let it out, trying to save itself. Okay?
But tell me, now that you're talking about the iron, I've never ever heard of anybody, from conventional, having too much iron. I've only ever heard of people saying they're anemic or they suffer from anemia and they got to be on iron tablets or iron injections. I very seldom have heard from conventional side or people saying that they actually have too much.
In fact, even with me, Carol, the majority of people that I've had, some who are receiving iron supplement, were actually iron overloaded. I've only had one case where this guy smiled and I thought, wow, this white guy that I was telling about who had leakage holes in his ear, he had iron overload and they had diagnosed it.
Wow, the only one.
That was the only one of all the cases that I've diagnosed. It was the only one that confirmed that they had already diagnosed it. Okay.
Oh,
but the majority of them, you find they are iron deficient. They're iron overloaded, but they are receiving iron supplements. Meanwhile, and you find that all of them tell me, I'm not even taking that liver anymore, because the moment I take it, I get reaction and so I just stop doing it myself and those iron supplements. So that is what caused in her case to be insulinomic and gastronomic. It was the iron deposits that damaged that pancreas to an extent where it ended up messing up, having those tumors, both insulinoma and gastronoma. So when I treated her, therefore, I started there. Okay. Firstly, remember, even if I start where, I'm doing all of them at the same time.
Yes.
So the treatment, firstly, I had to drain that iron, because it was the cause for the insulinoma and gastronoma. Okay. Now remember, it was not only affecting the pancreas, it was affecting the liver as well. Okay. The liver is always the first to be affected when there is iron issues, whether deficient or over. Yeah. So it was affecting the liver, it was affecting the pancreas. Okay. So I had to and remember what had caused that liver to battle to regulate iron? Because remember, in our case, iron-related issues are always liver disorders. Yes. But in conventional, when you've got hemochromatosis, which is iron overload, they will always say it's a hereditary problem.
Why would they say that?
No, but because they find that the tendency is you might have, and another child might, a child
or
might
parents.
Have. You find, yet the iron overload or deficiency is always at a secondary level. That diagnosis, there is always something that is disturbing that liver, because when the liver is in a good standing, it knows how to regulate iron absorption and storage. Okay, so once you battle with that function, you must know the liver is in trouble. So that is why with us, hemochromatosis or anemia for that matter, depending on what, because even with iron deficiency anemia, we will always separate the types because there are different types. Okay, so with us, we will always know there's something wrong with the liver. Okay. And even in her case, fructose intolerance.
Again.
again.
It raises its head in most of the cases.
It raises its head in most of the cases. So it was it was fructose intolerance that was hurting that liver, and that liver was struggling to regulate the iron absorption and storage, and it was causing, and the iron was now shared with other organs like the pancreas, and the next online was going to be the heart and the joints, because those four are usually the first ones that are hardest hit when there's hemochromatosis. So we had to do that. We had to work on the liver. We had to drain that iron overload, because remember, iron, once it is overload, it is metal. So we have to do chelation, metal chelation, so to try and regulate that iron and drain the overload. Then we had to shrink those tumors, Carol. We had to shrink those tumors to normal size, so that pancreas only supplies when it is told to supply and not keeps pumping, So I had to do that as well. And then I had to work on the cells, because remember, those cells, with all the dehydration, that had affected their activity and their health,
Yeah.
So I had to give a treatment to sort out, because she used to get quite thirsty also because of the dehydration. So I had to sort out the cellular condition, and hydrate those cells. But now remember, the hydration is not pumping them with fluid, but it is just helping them to be able to just absorb, because those cells should not be dehydrated.
Yeah, sure.
They should not be over supplied with fluid, but they shouldn't be dehydrated also. So I had to now balance that, so that those cells can receive enough fluid just to make them healthy, to put them on a healthy state. And then I had to give a treatment that repairs those that were really struggling.
Damaged.
Yeah. So, and that, I never gave her anything for epilepsy.
Oh my word.
And she has never had seizures ever since.
Well, that was going to be my next question. How is the girl now?
She has never had seizures. And I also said, you've got to stick to the diet, because if you go back to the diet, the same process is going to come back again.
We every now and again we touch on diet. So when people have the medication, it's important, obviously, with the diet that you give them to follow. Once the medication is finished, it's important for them to stay eating those feeds to maintain the health.
Yes, because remember, if you are deficient on the enzyme, aldolase enzyme, remember, aldolase enzyme is not produced by the body.
Yeah.
You can't even get a supplement for that. It is a genetic supply. So if you've inherited a defective gene that supplies that enzyme, then you just don't have the chance of ever correcting that. So then, but it doesn't mean you are sick, Carol.
Sure.
To be deficient on aldolase enzyme does not mean you are sick. It only means you cannot process fructose.
Certain foods.
Just particularly fructose.
Okay.
So if you stay away from fructose, therefore, then you're okay.
And you'll be all right.
You will be absolutely fine. You won't even be deficient on any type of nutrients, or because all the nutrients that you are having, your body can process, but those that come from fruit, you cannot handle. So your body does not even ask for them.
Okay.
So, but that's never going to change. That, because people usually ask me, okay, does that mean I'm going to have to stay away from fruit for the rest of my life? It means exactly that.
Yes.
Unless it is malabsorption. When it is fructose malabsorption, it's a different case.
Okay.
Because it's malabsorption is when you do have a proper supply of aldolase enzyme, but then you are probably intolerant of gluten and lactose, but not on fructose, and your villi are still in trouble.
Okay.
Because remember, the villi, those are the particles that allow for food to pass through so that it is absorbed. Okay. So when you are eating something that your body cannot process, those villi are destroyed literally destroyed by your immune system. If you remember, when I'll show the viewers where we were showing them the difference between a healthy villi and damaged villi. So when they're damaged, absorption not just of fruit,
of everything
becomes a problem.
Okay.
So which means, therefore, you are battling to absorb even fruit. And remember, fruit is, the worst thing about it is it ferments, because it carries a lot of acid. So it ferments. So it will affect you as though you are someone that is deficient on the enzyme, because the absorption does not occur both to you and to the one with deficiency in the enzyme. So you will still have problems. But then once you have allowed for those villi to regrow, and then absorption takes place again, then you can go back to taking fruit.
Oh, okay.
So that's the difference.
All right.
Okay. So that is what I want viewers to understand. But when it is malabsorption, we will tell you. And when it is the deficiency of the enzyme, we will also tell you.
So every single person will be diagnosed for what you found when you scan, and they will be reported to that.
They will be.
Timmy, that was amazing. Our second case.
Yeah. Our second case is a 42-year-old male. In fact, this is one of the case. This is a case. If you remember, there was a time when we were running a competition.
Yes.
And we had this particular client. Okay. I will show the viewers, just to remind them, just a few excerpts so that they can see who I'm referring to.
Okay.
So we can just have a look at that.
So ndamsa ke esibhedlele bazothathwa ngeambulance bamfake just idrip phaya bamnika treatment. The treatment ke kutya ipills eyi-1 qhubekekile nayo, but still usakhulunyiswa ngokuxhuzula. Uyaphinda ke bamtshintsha ngelithi ke bamnika uba makatye kabini kunalalo besitya kube kanye ngemini, kutya kusasa atye nangokurho, kodwa nalapho still usathi continue ngokuxhuzula kaboni.
But with this client, if viewers can still remember, he was assumed to have had the stroke. Okay, he was limping and the speech was slightly affected. And he was having seizures. If viewers can remember,
he was supposed to have been on treatment, wasn't he?
He was on treatment.
Okay.
He was on treatment, on epileptic treatment. And if viewers remember, he actually had seizures while we were even filming.
Oh, word.
Yeah, so it was that bad. And even though the dosage for epilepsy treatment had been increased, but he still had seizures. He still had.
So what was causing it then?
Now, in his case, there were two things that was causing seizures. Firstly, he had multiple sclerosis.
Oh, wow.
Okay, which I'll talk later about. But the other thing, he had he was glucagonomic. He had what we call a problem of glucagon.
Okay.
Now, this is also the problem of pancreas, but that's the flip side of pancreas. Now, remember, as I've mentioned, that pancreas produces insulin, which drops the levels by directing it to the cells. Now, glucagon does the opposite. It raises sugar levels. So most people that are diabetic, actually, you'll find that they are glucagonomic.
Okay.
So it causes sugar levels to rise.
And they would have seizures from that?
You have seizures from that.
Oh my word.
You have seizures from that because remember, it also messes up. Remember, you cannot afford to have too much glucose in your blood.
So you keep coming back to this word balance just now. I think we've heard it a million times in our show. Everything seems to be about balance.
It has got to be in balance. That's how the body is made.
Balance and harmony.
Equilibrium. Everything, when it's in balance.
Absolutely.
Everything has got to be in balance, Carol. It doesn't matter what
it is.
Nature requires that.
And we mess it up, don't we?
We mess it up. Once it's high there and low there, it's a problem. Once it's high there and low there, it's a problem.
Absolutely.
It's got to be.
Because all the cases, we're seeing absolute flip sides.
Yeah. So in his case, therefore, it was glucagon. Okay, now glucagon, it causes too much glucose. And remember, too little, it's a problem. Too much is also a problem. So it keeps on raising those sugar levels. And it may cause a person, remember, people that are diabetic, they know that you cannot afford to have high sugar levels.
Absolutely.
You can even go into a coma.
Yeah.
You can have those seizures. So, and remember, in his case, he was glucogonomic, he was diabetic.
Oh my word.
He was not receiving treatment for diabetes because that had never been diagnosed. And he was, so not just diabetic, but he was glucogonomic. So his sugar levels were extremely high. So, and that is what was causing him to have those seizures. And that is why, that was one of the reasons, because multiple sclerosis also added. So then I had to work on that. Okay, I'll come back to what I did to deal with that. Now, the second thing was multiple sclerosis. Now, multiple sclerosis is directly coming from the brain. Now, remember, glucagonoma is coming from the pancreas, but affecting the brain because it disturbs the activity. Now, the multiple sclerosis is directly coming from the brain. He had multiple sclerosis. Now, multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disorder. And the autoimmune disorder that damages the protective cover of the nerve fibers of the brain and the spinal cord. So in his case, it was triggering those. Now remember, this poor brain had a double tragedy because it was coming from all this hyperglycemia, these sugar levels that are very high, but at the same time the nerve fibers were exposed because of the multiple sclerosis. So his seizures were coming from both angles. But the multiple sclerosis was also the reason why he was seen to be having stroke. He didn't have stroke. I remember even when I was doing the reporting that he did not have stroke. He had multiple sclerosis that presented with stroke-like symptoms, and even causing him to have ataxia. The muscle coordination became a problem. So that is why
the twitching,
and it was coming from multiple sclerosis. Okay, so what I did with him, therefore, was his treatment was quite hectic.
I'm sitting thinking of all these issues that you were addressing, and I was about to say to you, the treatment must have been hectic.
It was hectic.
Those issues that he was presenting to you.
Yeah, it was quite hectic in his case. It was really hectic in his case because remember, this is the person whose brain has been affected in this manner.
Sure.
Now we had to correct that crazy autoimmune immune system, because remember, multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disorder. So we had to say, stop it, in the auto and diet also. It was the diet. It was the diet.
I can imagine.
Always boils down to the diet.
Well, I think the diet is where we start putting whatever we're putting into our body, too much or too little.
Yeah, and Carol, whatever. Remember, digressing a bit. The body coming to the balance also. The body is supposed to receive those things. It's supposed to receive that glucose. Because for your cell activity, you cannot survive without energy. And energy does not mean energy to run or to work. It means energy in the cells.
So that's pent-up energy waiting to use.
Exactly. That heart pumps because you supply it with glucose. Those lungs, because that brain activity, because that's why you find that at school they say if those children that come from very poor conditions, you find that they're not performing well at school and all that because they need that energy for brain activity.
Okay.
So you need that glucose, but then you need it in balance.
In the right quantities.
In the right quantities. So you need those fatty acids. You need that protein. You need all the types of nutrients that you've got to have them. But then, once you have the supply that is not properly converted. Because remember, there is even a system in the body. We've got two systems where there's what we call catabolic processes and anabolic processes. Now, where you find that all that piece of meat, that steak that you're eating, you get it, it's a big chunk of steak, but then it gets broken down into minute particles, and that are converted into what the body understands and then used. If you cannot break them down,
You can't use it.
it's a problem. If you cannot break down that meat because there's a problem with your digestive system or with your enzymes or it's a problem, because all that big chunk of meat that you have eaten
Will go rotten.
will go rotten. Instead, it's creating a toxic build-up instead of supplying that body. So all that is a system on its own. So when you get that food, therefore, you need your digestive system as a whole. It must break down that food
and process it.
You need your enzymes and process it and convert it from point this. That is, like, for instance, you hear that I'm talking the catabolic. It's a system that has to break it down into an anabolic system. So where you find that it comes from big to small, and then once it's small, then it goes and feed the big one. It's a cycle.
Yes.
Where you find it's broken into so small particles, and now it's then it starts doing its work, and then it ends up making that big heart, but it makes it do its function. So it is such a complicated.
It actually is.
The body is so complicated. So now, if you eat something that cannot be converted from that catabolic state,
It does more damage.
you're messing up. You cannot. So that is what is happening. Therefore, you find that you are saying, no, I've got to have fruit. Fine, if you've got the enzyme, if you can convert that fruit. If you can't,
it's no use to you.
It would be okay if it was just of no use, but not causing the damage.
The
problem is it's of use. It's of bad use, actually.
Exactly.
So you cannot have it if you're not going to properly convert it so that the blood can absorb it and the body can assimilate it and it does its work.
I think that's probably the most difficult thing for people to understand, because they say, I'm lactose intolerant, it doesn't matter, I can have a little bit of milk. They don't realize what is actually happening. Or I can have a little piece of bread if I'm gluten intolerant.
Yeah.
They don't actually realize. I think it's been, so easily accepted that people don't really understand. Now that you've described it and explained it, I think they're going to have a whole different perception on eating something that their bodies can't process.
And you know what I find to be quite interesting is that once people put it to a test,
oh yes,
and they start even if it's just for a month, then you find they actually look even better. In the first lot of his treatment, I did give him treatment for epilepsy.
Okay.
Just to correct, because remember there was damage there from the multiple sclerosis.
Okay.
So I had to, while we were repairing, the damage, so I gave him, but it was only once. The follow-up treatments, I never gave him anything for epilepsy. I concentrated on the pancreas, and I shrank that glucagon, and I corrected those sugar levels. They stabilized, and I sorted out the digestive system. Even though in this case it didn't have gastronoma, but I sorted out the digestive system, and then I concentrated on repairing the area that had actually caused the stroke, such that I remember the sister saying, he was like catatonic,
yes,
and the sister said the fingers, not the whole arm. She said the fingers had started moving. Okay,
yes,
but we'll get back to the whole thing but just coming to the epileptic seizures, which we're covering today. He has never had seizures. I started working on this guy in June 2014, and the sister said he had one seizure a week after we had started with the treatment, and ever since till today, we are now in May, he has never had a seizure in his life again.
Oh my word. That's quite remarkable.
Yeah. So now remember, this was the guy who was getting worse and worse and worse in there. So what I'm getting at there for Carol is there are many causes for epileptic seizures. Some can come directly from the brain, some can come from a clot that obstructs the flow, some can come from aneurysm, particularly the intracranial aneurysm, some can come from the glucagon or the insulin. They can come from anywhere. The difference, and some don't need treatment for epilepsy. Others need treatment for epilepsy, because like I said, with the girl I never administered epileptic treatment, but with him it was just once, and then the rest was covering other areas in his body, and both have never had epileptic seizures.
That's quite remarkable.
Okay.
Debbie, I think people are a lot more up to speed than what they were now as to the amount of medication that is needed.
I really want to emphasize this, Carol, because we give a lot of medication.
I think this is a whole change from what we knew to what is available.
Yes. I think actually even for doctors,
even for
conventional practitioners, because that's their training.
Sure.
I mean, you can understand.
There's no finger pointing here.
No. That is their training. Their training is saying, look at the symptom and manage the symptom.
Just treat that.
Manage the symptom. It's symptom management.
Okay.
And then you can and then if the symptom persists, then you do further investigations.
Tests.
But that is their starting, the departure point. You get what the symptom is, treat the symptom. Even though we try our utmost best, but you'll find because we live in a setup, that has been designed to be putting us where we are as far as health is concerned, then you find we are all victims at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
We are all victims.
Tembi, that has been very informative. I think we've learned a lot. I know I have again. Yes. Our viewers are really benefiting from this. It's been really, really beneficial.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome.
Health Haven is taking the health industry by storm. They are the talk of the town because they do the unthinkable and the unprecedented. That is what defines Health Haven. They have the gift of healing, and they know what they are doing.
In my line of work, I am reminded every day by cases that I deal with that healing is really, really a gift from God. It is not a right that we can claim, but it is a gift from God's generosity. We are simply His channel, and we are really blessed at Health Haven and also humbled to have been trusted with such a huge responsibility. We appreciate a lot your prayers and your inspirational words. We pray for you a lot too, and we are grateful for the results that God make us realize in our work with you. God bless you all, and goodbye.